This deployment of VMF-214's Black Sheep Squadron wasn't just another sortie. It was a confrontation with a physics problem written in blood. The morning of January 14th, 1944, at Vella Lavella airstrip, felt less like a sunrise and more like the opening of a tomb. F4U Corsairs, heavy and powerful, rumbled through the coral dust, their 2000 horsepower engines vibrating with barely contained tension. Every pilot strapped into his cockpit that day carried the indelible knowledge of the sacred rule whispered by Navy veterans since Pearl Harbor. Never, under any circumstance, attempt to dogfight a Zero in a turning engagement. For 2 agonizing years, the Japanese Mitsubishi A6M00 had defined aerial terror across the Pacific. Its reputation was a death sentence, pre-signed in aluminum and steel, a machine Japanese pilots hailed as the divine wind made manifest. The cold mathematics were simple and brutal. The Zero, at a feather-light 5313 lbs empty, would inevitably outmaneuver and position itself for the kill against the 982 pounds Corsair. This unassailable truth had incinerated countless American dreams, scattering the wreckage of Wildcats and Warhawks across the Solomons. The Japanese banked on American weight and timidity, confident that tactical doctrine would forever keep the heavy American fighters out of their domain. Yet this morning, a different kind of calculation was at play. Captain Henry Bourgeois, the 24-year-old Marine leading the element, had something the Zero pilots didn't: the innovative ammunition loading charts developed by Gunnery Sergeant John Bull. This formula, a devastating mix of armor-piercing incendiary rounds, transformed the Corsair's 50 caliber guns from standard weapons into instruments of mechanical annihilation. The mission carved in stone that day was not to evade. It was to engage the legendary Zero on its own terms and shatter the very physics that had kept it supreme. The time for cautious doctrine was over. The Japanese wanted a dogfight. VMF-214 was about to give them a revolution. The silence inside the F4U Corsair's cockpit, broken only by the rhythmic thunder of the Pratt & Whitney R2800 double wasp engine, was a brittle thing stretched tight over the knowledge that the flight plan itself was a surrender to fear. Since the first catastrophic encounters of the war, American doctrine had been clear, absolute, and reinforced by fire. The Corsair could outdive, outclimb, and outgun the Zero at high speed. But it could never, ever trade energy for maneuverability. Marine pilots lived by the boom and zoom creed: climb high, strike hard, and extend away before the lighter, more agile Japanese fighter could even begin its legendary turn. Men like Lieutenant Robert Hansen had mastered this mathematical violence, accumulating staggering kill counts through methodical adherence to vertical separation. It was effective, but it was also a concession. An acknowledgement that in a true chaotic knife fight, the American pilot was handicapped by the very industrial strength armor, heavy engine, robust frame that kept him alive. But this morning, January 14th, 1944, the chessboard had been overturned. Intelligence had confirmed that Colonel Saburo Sakai's veteran fighter group at Rabaul was not just flying patrols. They were reinforced by 30 new improved A6M5 Model 52 Zeros flown by pilots reassigned from elite carrier duty after the devastating losses at the Philippine Sea. The Japanese mission was explicit, brutal, and calculated conduct. Aggressive fighter sweeps over the Allied positions, not merely to intercept, but to lure American fighters into sustained turning engagements, where the Zero's superiority could be demonstrated convincingly. The enemy was demanding the fight American doctrine explicitly prohibited. Captain Henry Bourgeois, the 24-year-old Louisiana Marine, felt the full weight of this tactical trap pressing against his armor-plated seat as his section of Corsairs climbed northwest toward the Russell Islands. At 15,000 feet, the humid tropical air was replaced by a chill 38 degrees F that misted his breath inside the plexiglass bubble. Every man in VMF-214 knew the stakes. The Japs believed they were too heavy and too stupid to mix it up, a belief Major Gregory Boyington had only partly conceded. Boyington had drilled them relentlessly. They're half right. We are heavier, but that weight gives us speed and firepower they can't match. Use it. yet using it meant adhering to the vertical tactics. This mission, however, was about breaking the enemy's will, and to do that they had to break the rule. At 0847 hours, the trap sprung. Rabaul radar operators scrambled 18 A6M50s under the command of Lieutenant Commander Tetsuzo Iwamoto, a pilot credited with 80 confirmed aerial victories. Iwamoto's voice crackling across recovered flight recordings after the war, dripped with confidence. American fighters are heavy and clumsy. Force them into turning combat and destroy them systematically. The Zero pilots had been briefed that Corsair pilots were pathologically trained to avoid horizontal dogfighting, making them predictable prey for aggressive maneuvering attacks. This intelligence was tragically accurate, and it was about to become instantly catastrophically obsolete. Bourgeois spotted the 18 silver dots climbing from the northwest, first against the backdrop of towering cumulus clouds. 4 miles out, the closure rate exceeded 600 miles per hour. In exactly 36 seconds, the two formations, the heavy, robust Americans and the light, lethal Japanese, would merge. Boyington's voice, calm and lethal, cut the radio silence. Tally-ho Zeros, 2 o'clock high. Let's go get 'em. The American formation broke into 3 4-ship sections. Bourgeois, leading the second element, watched as the Zeros closed the distance. As the formations merged at 17500 feet, the Japanese pilots did exactly what they were trained to do. Iwamoto's Zero pulled into a steep, hard left bank, rapidly bleeding airspeed to position himself behind Boyington for a deflection shot. 3 more Zeros followed, initiating a rotating engagement pattern that by every metric of tactical doctrine and aircraft physics should have secured them the immediate decisive advantage. The Japanese were forcing the prohibited turning fight. It was here over the Solomon Sea that Captain Henry Bourgeois made the decision that violated every principle he had been taught, every piece of hard-won wisdom paid for in the wreckage of burning Wildcats. Instead of extending out of the engagement to conserve the life-giving energy advantage, he hauled back on the control stick and pulled his 9,000-pound Corsair into a hard right turn to meet the Japanese maneuver. Directly, the immediate visceral consequence was terrifying. His aircraft shuddered violently. Under 6 G-forces, the crushing weight of acceleration slamming his body against the armor plating. His airspeed indicator plummeted from 380 miles per hour to 220 miles per hour in less than 4 seconds, the precise window of vulnerability where a Zero would normally position itself for the killing blow. "Hank, what the hell are you doing? Extend and climb out." The desperate warning from his wingman, Lieutenant Charles Lanier, sliced through the radio static filled with alarm and disbelief. The warning came too late. Bourgeois was already committed, defying the mathematics of weight and maneuverability. Locked in a turning fight with 3, a 6M5S, whose combined pilots possessed over 45 confirmed aerial victories. By all known calculations, the engagement should have ended with his Corsair spiraling smoking toward the sea. But physics, for the first time in the war, was about to be blindsided. The Zero pilots were committed to the turn, confident in their structural advantage, but they had not accounted for the R-2800's relentless horsepower, nor had they accounted for the silent, unseen revolution loaded into the Corsair's wings, John Bull's ammunition. The decision by Captain Bourgeois to defy tactical gravity and plunge his Corsair into the heart of the Zero's turning game was not simply an act of bravado. It was a calculated gamble based entirely on the secret weapon loaded into his wing racks. That secret was the ballistic genius of Gunnery Sergeant John Bull, whose systematic analysis of failure had birthed a lethal, devastating innovation that fundamentally rewrote the math of aerial combat, the genesis of mechanical devastation. For 2 years, American pilots had suffered from an infuriating reality. Hitting a Zero often wasn't enough. The Japanese aircraft, built for speed and range, lacked armor plating around the cockpit and crucial self-sealing fuel tanks. Yet standard ball ammunition, while accurate, often passed clean through the aluminum structure without causing catastrophic failure. Kills required prolonged, concentrated bursts aimed at critical components, time the Zero rarely granted. Bull, a competitive marksman and ballistics expert, questioned this doctrine. His solution was an elegant, terrifyingly effective application of mixed ammunition loading that prioritized lethality over mere consistency. This was the different kind of mathematics Bourgeois carried that morning. Bull's formula. Exploiting the zero's fatal flaw. Bull's innovation was simple but revolutionary: to create a stream of projectiles that combined the best elements of penetration, detonation, and ranging, thereby ensuring that any accurate burst was a killing blow. The technical specifications of Annihilation 1, armor-piercing incendiary API rounds. This was the linchpin. Every fifth round loaded into the belts was an API projectile. These rounds were designed specifically to penetrate the Zero's thin, unarmored skin and its aluminum structure before igniting. Crucially, they were formulated to detonate inside the aircraft's fuel tanks or ammunition storage areas. 2. Standard ball ammunition. Filling the gaps between the API, these rounds provided consistent accuracy and maintained excellent penetrating power against less vital aircraft components, ensuring a dense stream of fire. 3. Tracer ammunition. Comprising every 10th projectile, the tracer rounds allowed pilots to visually confirm shot placement and make real-time precise adjustments to their aim during the chaos of the dogfight, a vital tool when time was measured in split seconds.